What's the secret you've kept from your parents that would destroy them if they knew? I was dog sitting for my parents when I accidentally wrecked my dad's vintage guitar, a 1960s Gibson he'd owned since high school and swore he'd passed down to me. It was leaning against the wall in his study, and while trying to stop the dog from chewing a sock, I bumped into it and watched it fall face down with a sickening crack. The headstock snapped clean off. My parents were flying back the next day. That's when I made a split-second decision that turned into the wildest 18 hours of my life. I decided I had to find the exact same guitar before they got back. This wasn't some common model. It was a cherry sunburst Gibson ES 335, original parts, with a serial number my dad knew by heart. He told me once he skipped rent to buy it, and it was the only thing he saved when he moved cross-country for college. I couldn't just glue the neck back together with Elmer's and hope for the best. After a deep dive online, I found a listing for the same model at a vintage guitar store in Nashville, 3.5 hours away. The price? $12,000. I had maybe $3,000 total, including a card I hadn't used since freshman year. I called the store and lied through my teeth, told them I was helping authenticate pieces for a famous collector and needed to verify serials before he flew in to buy. The guy read it off. It was 2 digits off my dad's, but everything else matched, down to the faded strap peg. I wrapped up the broken pieces in a towel, grabbed my laptop, maxed out 2 credit cards, and hit the road. By the time I got to Nashville, I'd convinced my cousin to Venmo me another $2,000 and promised to sell my camera gear to cover the rest later. The guitar was on the wall, and it was stunning. I played it just long enough to choke back the guilt, then handed over every cent I had and walked out with it. I got back home just before sunrise and placed it exactly where the old one stood, adjusting the strap to the same length, making sure the pick marks lined up with where my dad's hand usually hit. That evening, my dad walked into the study and froze. He picked it up, strummed a few chords, and said, "Huh, you finally cleaned it." I nodded and said nothing. 2 weeks later, I drove the broken one to a luthier who specialized in vintage repairs. He took one look and said, "Clean break. I can make it playable again." So I paid another $800 to get it fixed, and now I keep it hidden in my apartment closet. I figured I'd give it back one day and tell the story when we're both too old to care. But now every time I visit home, my dad still pulls out the original guitar, plays a few licks, and talks about how it's never sounded better. And I just smile and listen.